Kevin Power from the Conversation Lab. A very warm welcome.
Nice to be here.
Now, you boast about being a new kind of agency. I've been covering this industry for a long time. I've heard this so many times before. Yet you say your USP is the age of conversations. What are you telling us?
We believe we now operate in the age of conversation. So in the 80s was the broadcast age, one could say, in the 80s and the 90s. In the 2000s, you're looking probably at the dot-com age. That's when websites became prolific and everyone was building a website and engaging with websites. We now believe in this decade, and probably for the last couple of years, is that we live in the age of conversations. And that's quite simply is brands are talking to consumers much more readily, engaging with consumers on topics about their products, their services, and importantly how brands can help consumers in their life and navigate their lives, which is a key conversational area.
Throughout the ages, hasn't good brand communication always been about conversation? This is just a different way of spinning it, isn't it?
No, I don't think it has, actually. I think it's been very much about a brand talking to a consumer. So a brand would have a brand message. We need to communicate that message to consumers. We'll wrap it up in great creative, be that a TV ad, be that a press ad, be that radio, and a consumer would receive that communication and they'd potentially act on it. They'd go in store or they'd buy a product. What we now want in the age of conversations is that you create content that ignites the conversation. So the receiver of that message is inspired to talk to a friend, talk to a wife when she walks into the lounge and say, have you just seen what I've just heard? If the phone rings while he's watching a TV ad, he tells his mate, this is what we've just heard. So it inspires you to pass that message on. And I think traditional broadcast isn't about inspiring to pass on. It's more.
And the key phrase you've just used is act on the conversation. So, in your opinion, what makes a thoughtful brand conversation in this age of hyperclutter?
The key word that we use when we talk to clients a lot about is brand utility. So brands as a service. If you want a consumer to spend time with your brand, to spend time with your messages, you've got to deliver value. So we talk about value exchange. So if you expect a consumer when he gets to the Braai Vleis or when he gets to the water cooler to talk about your brand, you have to give him something in return. So that wants him to do that. And we put that down to value. So it could either be a great experience or it could be value. And that value could be interesting information that helps them in their lives, or it could be a tool or an application that makes their lives easier. So what we look for is whatever a brand is, look for an area or a wrapping that you can have around that brand that is relevant to a consumer, and you can have that conversation.
I understand the notion of thoughtful conversations, but any brand, doesn't matter what type of advertising or communication execution there is, wants to maintain a semblance of control. Brands increasingly are losing that control as conversation comes to the fore.
Yeah, I mean, we had I've had this debate with clients for years, and what we say is there is an element that you lose control, but there's also, you can have a large degree of control. If you go in with your eyes open, you go in with rigor, proper planning, you can frame the conversation, you can manage the conversation. So with EasyJet, our client was, when I worked in the UK for Publicis, the client was terrified. They said, look, you either love us or hate us. We don't want to get into social. There's an army of people out there who will disparage our brand, who will complain that our planes are late, who will complain about our unfriendly staff from time to time. We're a low-cost airline, we're low frills, we can't be more than that. So what we said, that the conversation is not about your aeroplanes and your comfy seats or your lack of comfy seats. The conversation is about travel, exploration, discovery. And then it becomes a much richer territory where you can help consumers navigate where to fly to, where to go, what time of year to go. So we framed that conversation around a shared value system, which EasyJet's shared value system was, we believe that everyone has the right to travel, the democratization of travel. That's what EasyJet believed, and consumers believe in that. Let's have a conversation about that. And it takes it away from the products, the service, and the actual planes. And it puts you'll always get people coming on in the social space complaining about the products and services, but you can manage that and you can deal with that.
Isn't the conversation that you're talking about very one-dimensional in this economy right now? In the age of margin chase, I would suggest to you that brand managers need to bark price, they need to bark discount, they need to bark location. Nothing else matters.
And we don't hear too many people about it, but we're very clear on what we talk about with customers, is you're either in market for a product or you're out of market. It's very easy when you're in market for a product. If I'm in market for a car, I raise my hand, I'm in market. If I'm in market for an iPod or an iPad or a holiday, That's easy. Then we talk about selling, and that's when you sell with product and price and demand generator, and you get in front of them with an offer. If people are further up the purchase funnel, i.e. they've just had a holiday. Well, if I've just had a holiday, unfortunately, I'm not in the market for a holiday for another year. If I've just bought a car, I'm not in the market for a car for another 5 years. So you can go aggressively product and price with them till the cows come home. It's going to be white noise. It's going to go over their heads because they're not in the market. Insurance, the same thing. You sign your insurance, you put it in the drawer. I'm not in the market for insurance. Our insurance can shout very loudly. Sometimes they'll win, but they're going to be difficulty to put me back in the market. So for those people, we need to talk to them differently. We need to help them differently. We need to give them a different content story or narrative.
Tonality, context and structure.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Final question to you. You claim any brand can have a social life. EasyJet I buy, Outsurance I buy. But seriously, how can a toilet spray have a social life?
Yeah, we absolutely believe that. I mean, I've sat in meetings with from banks to fuel companies saying we can't have a social life, we don't want to play in that space. It's all about what I talk about, shared values and sort of a continuum of a conversation. A toilet spray is a perfect one, and funny enough, I've just looked at loving that campaign that Unilever are doing with Domestos, which is it's a toilet cleaner. But their shared value system is that we believe that clean toilets help with the education of a child, and they've done research. So it helps, the more clean toilets you have in South Africa and in Africa, the better the education will be. All of a sudden, that toilet spray can have an education conversation. They can be, and that's a shared value system where it's passion point in South Africa, education. People are wanting to talk about education. You connect with people. Toilet spray is the platform to help that conversation take place.
A smart new agency in this space. It's Durban-based. It's called the Conversation Lab. Kevin Power, thank you very much for joining us.
Nice to be here.